Have you ever wondered why, in a world full of opportunities, talent, and information, so few people actually make it? We see millions starting businesses, joining gyms, and picking up new skills, yet statistics show that 99% of them will eventually quit or settle for mediocrity. This isn't just a random occurrence, it is a systematic failure of the human blueprint. Most people are running on software designed for survival, not for greatness. If you are determined to break free from the masses and join the top 1%, you are in the right place. To ensure you never miss our deep dive guides into human potential, please subscribe to the Knowledge Hub. If you find value in our mission to spread wisdom, hit the bell icon and join our community of thinkers. Let's continue. The 99% are not failing because they don't want to succeed. They fail because they are addicted to the illusion of effort. They mistake being busy with being productive. They spend their days reacting to emails, scrolling through motivational content, and talking about their big plans, yet they never engage in the deep, painful work that actually moves the needle. Success is not a participation trophy awarded for showing up. It is a ruthless filter that only lets through those who can convert raw effort into tangible results. The first major reason for this mass failure is the safety net trap. Most people never truly commit to their goals because they always keep a plan B in their back pocket. They say they want to be an entrepreneur, but they keep their mediocre job just in case. They say they want to be a master of a craft, but they spend their weekends distracted by easy entertainment. When you have a safety net, your subconscious mind knows it. The moment things get difficult, and they always do, your brain will find a logical reason to retreat to that safety net. The 1%, however, follow the ancient strategy of burning the boats. When there is no way to go back, the only way is forward. This absolute commitment is what separates a dream from a reality. Secondly, the 99% are ruled by the dopamine of the start. Starting something new is easy and exciting. The first day of a new diet or a new business venture feels amazing because your brain is flooded with dopamine from the idea of success. But success is a marathon, not a sprint. Eventually, the initial excitement fades and you enter what experts call the dip. This is the long, dark tunnel of hard work where there are no immediate rewards, no applause, and plenty of frustration. This is where the 99% vanish. They mistake the loss of excitement for a sign that they should quit. They are addicted to the new, so they jump to the next shiny object, starting a new cycle of failure. The 1% understand that the dip is exactly where the competition disappears. They don't work for the feeling, they work for the vision. Another silent killer of potential is emotional reactivity. The majority of people are like leaves in the wind. Their mood, their productivity, and their focus are entirely dependent on their environment. If someone is mean to them, they lose their focus for the day. If the weather is bad, they don't feel like working. They are slaves to their internal and external weather. True success requires emotional sovereignty. It is the ability to show up and perform your best regardless of how you feel. The 99% wait until they feel like it to take action. The 1% take action until they feel like it. They have built a character that can override their impulses and emotions. Furthermore, we must address the comparison paradox. We live in an era where everyone's highlight reel is available on social media 24/7. The 99% spend hours comparing their internal struggles with other people's external successes. This leads to a paralyzing sense of inadequacy. They feel like they are behind in life, so they either rush their progress and make fatal mistakes, or they give up entirely because the gap feels too wide to bridge. They fail to realize that the only person they should be competing with is the version of themselves from yesterday. Success is a solitary game of incremental improvement. When you focus on the crowd, you lose your footing. Finally, in this first step, we have to look at the authority bias. Most people fail because they follow the advice of other failures. They take financial advice from broke relatives, relationship advice from unhappy friends, and career advice from people who hate their jobs. They are so afraid of being an outsider that they follow the herd straight into a life of quiet desperation. To join the 1%, you must be willing to be misunderstood. You must be willing to let go of the need for approval from people who have never been where you want to go. You must seek mentors, not peers. In this introductory chapter of our autopsy on failure, we have uncovered the lack of commitment, the dopamine addiction, the emotional instability, and the trap of social comparison. These are the internal shackles that keep the 99% in place, but the cage has more bars than just these. In the next part, we will look at the financial mirage, how the 99% handle resources in a way that guarantees they stay stuck, and how a fundamental misunderstanding of time acts as the ultimate filter for greatness. If you feel like you've been caught in some of these traps, don't be discouraged. The first step to escaping a prison is realizing you are in one. You have already taken that step by being here. The journey from the masses to the masters is long, but it is the only journey worth taking. As we move deeper into this autopsy of failure, we must look at the external resources that the 99% consistently mismanage: money and time. While the internal mindsets we discussed in Step 1 are the roots, how you handle your resources is the fruit. Most people stay trapped in mediocrity not because they don't earn enough, but because they have a consumer blueprint instead of an investor blueprint. They view money as a tool for immediate pleasure rather than a tool for future freedom. This is what we call the financial mirage, the illusion that looking successful is the same as being successful. The 99% are caught in a cycle of lifestyle inflation. As soon as their income increases, their expenses rise to meet it. They buy a better car, a bigger house, or more expensive clothes to signal a status they haven't truly earned. By doing this, they sell their future freedom for temporary validation. They become high-income slaves, people who earn a lot but are one paycheck away from disaster because they have no assets, only liabilities. The 1% understand that wealth is what you don't see. It is the money invested, the businesses built, and the compound interest working in the background. While the 99% work for money to buy things, the 1% make their money work for them to buy time. This brings us to the most critical filter of all, the management of time. Everyone on this planet is given the same 24 hours, yet the gap in what people achieve with those hours is staggering. The 99% treat time as if it were infinite. They kill time, pass time, and waste time as if they have 1,000 years to live. They are masters of low-value activities. They can tell you everything about the latest TV show, the latest celebrity scandal, or the latest political drama, but they cannot tell you the last time they spent 3 hours in deep, focused work on their primary goal. They suffer from chronic distraction, allowing every notification and every whim of the crowd to pull them away from their mission. The 1%, however, view time as their most non-renewable and precious resource. They don't just manage time, they protect it with a level of intensity that others find offensive. They understand the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, that 80% of their results come from 20% of their activities. While the 99% are busy doing 100 small, insignificant things, the 1% are focused on the 2 or 3 big moves that will actually change their lives. They say no to 99% of invitations so they can say yes to the 1% of opportunities that matter. Failure is often just the result of saying yes to too many unimportant things. Another reason the 99% fail is their relationship with hardship. In the modern world, we have been conditioned to seek the path of least resistance. We want hacks, shortcuts, and instant results. The 99% view pain and struggle as signs that something is wrong. When a project becomes difficult or a skill becomes frustrating to learn, they assume they don't have the talent and they quit. But the 1% view pain as a prerequisite. They know that the gold is always hidden behind the grit. They understand that if it were easy, everyone would do it and the reward would be worthless. The struggle isn't an obstacle to the path, the struggle is the path. By avoiding discomfort, the 99% accidentally avoid their own evolution. Furthermore, we must address the knowledge without action trap. We live in the information age. You can learn almost anything for free on the internet. However, the 99% use information as a form of entertainment. They watch videos like this one, read books, and listen to podcasts, but they never apply what they learn. They are professional learners who never become professional doers. They confuse the feeling of learning with the reality of achieving. This creates a false sense of progress. You can read every book on swimming, but you will drown the moment you hit the water if you haven't practiced. The 1% value a gram of action more than a ton of theory. They learn just enough to take the next step, and then they learn through the feedback of their own mistakes. This leads to the feedback loop failure. Most people are terrified of being wrong. They view a mistake as a permanent stain on their identity. Because they fear failure, they avoid taking risks, and because they avoid risks, they never get the feedback necessary to grow. The 99% stay in the safe zone where they can't be criticized, but they also can't be noticed. The 1% treat failure as data. They fail fast and fail forward. Every time something goes wrong, they analyze it, adjust their strategy, and try again. They don't take it personally. They understand that success is simply the result of surviving a long string of failures with your enthusiasm intact. Consider the environment factor. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. The 99% surround themselves with people who reflect their current reality, not their future potential. They hang out with people who complain, people who settle, and people who have small dreams. This creates a crab mentality. Whenever one person tries to climb out of the bucket of mediocrity, the others pull them back down. The 1% are willing to be lonely for a while until they find a new tribe. They seek out people who are faster, smarter, and more successful than they are. They would rather be the dumbest person in a room of geniuses than the smartest person in a room of losers. In this second stage of our autopsy, we have seen how the mismanagement of money, the disrespect of time, the avoidance of struggle, and the lack of application create a powerful gravity that keeps 99% of people grounded. Failure is not a single event. It is a lifestyle of small, poor choices that accumulate over years. As we move into step 3, we will explore the mental architecture of failure, the specific psychological biases and cognitive errors that blind the 99% to the opportunities right in front of them. We will look at how the fixed mindset creates a ceiling on your potential and how to shatter it. If you've realized that you've been treating your time and money like the 99%, today is the day that changes. In the third stage of our deep dive, we must address the internal engine that drives either success or stagnation, the mindset. Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck famously identified 2 types of mindsets that govern human behavior: the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. The 99% are almost universally trapped in a fixed mindset. They believe that their intelligence, talent, and abilities are static traits. They think, "I am just not good at math," or "I am not a natural leader," or "I don't have the creative spark." This belief system is the ultimate prison. If you believe your potential is capped at birth, you will never put in the effort required to transcend your current circumstances. The 99% view failure as a judgment on their identity. When they fail at a task, they don't see it as "I failed this time," they see it as "I am a failure." This creates an intense fear of looking stupid, which leads them to avoid challenges where they might struggle. They prefer to do things they are already good at, repeating the same level of performance for decades. This is why many people have 20 years of experience, but in reality, they have 1 year of experience repeated 20 times. They have stopped growing because they have stopped stretching. The 1% conversely possess a growth mindset. They believe that talent is merely the starting point and that mastery is the result of focused effort and resilience. To them, failure is not a reflection of their worth, but a necessary piece of feedback on their journey toward excellence. This leads us to the self-sabotage mechanism. Deep down, many people in the 99% are afraid of success just as much as they are afraid of failure. Success brings responsibility, it brings visibility, it brings the pressure to maintain a high standard. To avoid this pressure, the subconscious mind creates hurdles. People show up late for important interviews, they procrastinate on vital projects, or they pick fights with people who are trying to help them. This is a defense mechanism designed to keep them in the safe zone we discussed earlier. They would rather fail by their own hand than risk succeeding and having to live up to a new, higher version of themselves. Furthermore, the 99% suffer from learned helplessness. This is a psychological condition where, after experiencing repeated stressful situations or failures, a person starts to believe they have no control over their life. They blame the economy, they blame their parents, they blame the government, or they blame bad luck. By placing the cause of their failure outside of themselves, they give away their power to change it. If the problem is out there, then the solution is also out there, and since they can't control the world, they simply stop trying. The 1% take extreme ownership. Even when things truly aren't their fault, they act as if they are. They ask, what could I have done differently to avoid this? By taking responsibility for the problem, they retain the power to create the solution. Another psychological barrier is sunk cost fallacy. The 99% stay in the wrong careers, the wrong relationships, and the wrong habits simply because they have already invested so much time or money into them. They think, I can't quit law now, I spent 5 years studying for it. Even though they hate every second of their work, they continue to pour good resources after bad ones. The 1% understand that the time and money spent are gone forever, they are sunk. The only question that matters is, given where I am today, what is the best move for my future? They are willing to pivot, to reinvent themselves, and to walk away from a bad investment, no matter how much it hurts their ego. We also have to consider the need for certainty. Human beings crave predictability. The 99% want a guaranteed outcome before they take a risk. They want to know exactly how much they will earn, how long it will take, and if they will definitely succeed. But greatness is found in the fog of uncertainty. There are no guarantees in the 1%. Every major breakthrough in history required someone to step into the unknown without a map. By demanding certainty, the 99% limit themselves to the mundane. They trade their infinite potential for a small, guaranteed paycheck and a predictable routine. This mental architecture is reinforced by the information bubble. The 99% consume content that confirms what they already believe. They listen to people who agree with them and stay away from ideas that challenge their worldview. This creates a stagnant mind. To move into the 1%, you must become an intellectual nomad. You must be willing to kill your own darlings, to let go of old beliefs when better ones are presented. You must actively seek out the opposition to your ideas so that your thinking becomes sharp and refined. Finally, in this third step, we must look at focus fragmentation. In the digital age, the average person's attention span has plummeted. The 99% are multitasking their way to mediocrity. They think they are being productive while they have 10 tabs open, music playing, and their phone buzzing next to them. But the brain cannot multitask, it can only switch task, and each switch costs energy and focus. The 1% understand the power of monastic focus. They pick one thing, one goal, one task, one mission, and they pour their entire being into it until it is finished. They know that a laser beam can cut through steel, while a scattered light bulb can only illuminate a room. As we conclude this chapter on the mindset of failure, ask yourself, is your mind a fortress or a prison? Are you protecting your limitations or are you hunting for your potential? The architecture of your mind determines the height of your life. If the foundation is built on fixed beliefs, fear of judgment, and a need for certainty, no amount of hard work will ever make you successful. In Step 4, we will shift from the mind to the strategy of execution. We will talk about why working hard is often a trap and how the 99% fail to understand the difference between linear work and leveraged work. We will look at how to build systems that scale and why the lone wolf mentality usually leads to burnout and failure. The fourth reason for mass failure lies in the difference between how the 99% and the 1% understand work. If hard work alone were the secret to success, the most exhausted people on the planet would be the wealthiest. We often hear the mantra, just work harder, but this is a half-truth that leads many into a life of burnout without reward. The 99% are trapped in linear work, while the 1% focus on leveraged work. Exponential function and linear function in a graph or chart isolated on white. Linear work is a simple equation. 1 unit of input equals 1 unit of output. If you want more money or more progress, you have to put in more hours. But human beings have a hard limit. We only have 24 hours in a day. The 99% trade their time for money, which means their income and their success are capped by their physical presence. They become glorified workers even if they own their own business, because if they stop working, the engine stops running. The 1%, however, focus on building systems, assets, and teams. They look for ways to decouple their time from their results. They use the leverage of software, media, capital, and people to multiply their efforts. While the 99% are focused on how can I do this, the 1% are asking how can this be done without me? Another fatal execution error made by the 99% is the lack of feedback loops. Most people launch a project or start a habit and then put their heads down and keep grinding, even if the strategy isn't working. They are afraid to look at the data because the data might tell them they are wrong. They don't track their numbers, they don't ask for brutal feedback, and they don't analyze their failures. This is like a pilot trying to fly a plane in a storm without any instruments. You might be working very hard, but you are flying in the wrong direction. The 1% are obsessed with data. They fail fast because they want to find out what doesn't work as quickly as possible so they can pivot to what does. They treat their life and business like a laboratory where every action is an experiment designed to yield information. Furthermore, we must address the lone wolf myth. The 99% often believe they have to do everything themselves. They wear their busyness as a badge of honor, doing their own taxes, their own graphic design, their own administrative work, and their own deep work. They think they are saving money, but they are actually wasting their most valuable asset, their focus. By trying to be a jack of all trades, they become a master of none. The 1% understand the power of specialization and delegation. They identify their zone of genius, the one or two things they do better than anyone else, and they delegate or automate everything else. They know that to go fast, you can go alone, but to go far, you must go with a team. The 99% also fail because they lack strategic persistence. There is a difference between being persistent and being stubborn. Persistence is staying committed to the goal while being flexible about the method. Stubbornness is staying committed to a method that clearly isn't working. The 99% often give up right before a breakthrough because the method became too hard, or they keep doing the same failing thing for years because they are too stubborn to admit it's not working. The 1% are ruthlessly honest with themselves. They hold their vision in stone but their plans in sand. They are willing to change their entire business model or their entire daily routine if the evidence suggests a better way. Then there is the issue of micro-distractions. The 99% are victims of death by 1,000 cuts. They don't lose their dreams in one big catastrophe, they lose them in 10-minute increments. 10 minutes of scrolling, 10 minutes of gossip, 10 minutes of checking news. By the end of the day, their deep work capacity is depleted. They have spent their best cognitive energy on things that don't matter. The 1% practice environmental design. They don't rely on willpower to stay focused because they know willpower is a finite resource. Instead, they design their environment to make focus easy and distraction difficult. They turn off notifications, they work in isolated spaces, and they guard their peak hours with their lives. Finally, in this step, we must talk about the skill stacking gap. The 99% usually stop learning the moment they leave formal education. They think their degree is the end of their intellectual journey. But in a rapidly changing world, your expiration date comes quickly if you don't update your skills. The 1% are obsessive self-educators. They don't just learn one skill, they stack complementary skills. A great programmer is valuable, but a great programmer who also understands marketing and psychology is a unicorn. By stacking rare and valuable skills, the 1% make themselves anti-fragile, meaning they become more valuable as the world becomes more complex. In this fourth part of our autopsy, we have moved from the why to the how. We have seen that failure is often a result of inefficient execution, lack of leverage, and an inability to adapt based on feedback. The 99% are busy, but the 1% are effective. The 99% work hard, but the 1% work smart by using systems and scale. As we move into our final step 5, we will bring all these threads together. We will look at the long game perspective, the role of character, and the final transition from the masses to the masters. We will provide the ultimate checklist to ensure you never fall back into the traps of the 99%. And remember, as we reach the end, we will have our final call to action to seal this journey of transformation. The final and perhaps most daunting reason why 99% of people fail is their inability to play the long game. We live in a culture of instant gratification. We want the body after 1 week of the gym, the profit after 1 month of the business, and the mastery after a few hours of practice. When the results don't manifest immediately, the 99% conclude that it's not working and they move on to something else. They are looking for a sprint in a world that only rewards the marathon runners. Success is a game of endurance. It is the ability to maintain your intensity and your vision long after the initial excitement has worn off. The 1% understand that anything worth having takes longer than you think, costs more than you expect, and is harder than you imagined. They embrace the boring years, the years of quiet, unglamorous work that eventually lead to an overnight success. Character is the silent foundation of this endurance. The 99% often fail because they lack the moral and emotional stamina to handle success even if they were to achieve it. They take shortcuts, they compromise their integer ID for quick gains, and they burn bridges to get ahead. But success built on a hollow character is like a house built on sand. It will inevitably collapse under the weight of its own complexity. The 1% focus on building a fortress of character. They understand that how you do anything is how you do everything. They value their word, they practice extreme self-discipline, and they realize that true power is not about dominating others, but about mastering yourself. When you master yourself, the world naturally bows to your will. As you move from the 99% to the 1%, you must also change your relationship with failure itself. For the masses, failure is a dead end, a sign to stop. For the elite, failure is merely a detour, a sign to adjust. Think of a toddler learning to walk. They fall down dozens of times, but they never sit on the floor and think, maybe walking just isn't for me. They keep getting up because their drive is primal and pure. As adults, the 99% lose that primal resilience. They become so afraid of the fall that they stop trying to walk altogether. To succeed, you must regain that childlike immunity to embarrassment. You must be willing to be the fool for as long as it takes to become the master. The transition requires a total identity shift. You cannot achieve 1% results while maintaining a 99% identity. You must start seeing yourself as the person you want to become before the evidence arrives. If you want to be a world-class athlete, you must train, eat, and sleep like one today. If you want to be a visionary leader, you must think, read, and speak like one now. The world doesn't give you what you want, it gives you who you are. The 99% are waiting for success to change them, while the 1% change themselves to attract success. This is the ultimate, the Knowledge Hub secret. Success is not something you pursue, it is something you attract by the person you become. Finally, we must talk about the trap of enough. Many people in the 99% reach a certain level of comfort, a decent house, a stable job, a nice car, and they stop growing. They become comfortably numb. They lose the hunger that got them there in the first place, but in a universe that is constantly expanding, standing still is the same as moving backward. The 1% are never satisfied in the sense of being finished, they are grateful but hungry. They view every summit not as a place to rest, but as a vantage point to see the next higher mountain. They understand that the joy of life is not in the destination, but in the constant stretching of their own potential. As we bring this autopsy to a close, realize that you now have the mirror in your hands. You can see the traps, the biases, and the habits that keep 99% of humanity in a state of quiet desperation. The door to the 1% is open, but it is a narrow door. It requires you to leave behind your excuses, your need for approval, and your addiction to comfort. It requires a level of honesty with yourself that most people find unbearable. But on the other side of that door is a life that most people can only dream of, a life of purpose, power, and lasting impact. The statistics are against you, the world is noisy, and the path is steep. But you were not born to be a statistic, you were born to be an exception. Breaking free from the 99% is the hardest journey you will ever take, but you don't have to walk it alone. If this deep dive into the anatomy of failure has sparked a fire in you, then let that fire drive you toward action. If you found value in these 5 steps and want to continue your education in mastery and wisdom, please subscribe to the Knowledge Hub. Our community is dedicated to those who refuse to settle and who are committed to the 1% path. Share this video with one person who you want to see succeed alongside you. Your support allows us to keep bringing you these deep-form guides to greatness. Thank you for your time, your focus, and your commitment to your own growth. Stay hungry, stay focused, and we will see you in the next chapter of your success.